Welcome to Business Class. I'm Steve Ekstrom from Learn Tourism, a nonprofit academy dedicated to advancing the tourism industry through innovative training and sustainable practices. Our mission? To empower travel professionals and communities with the knowledge they need to create meaningful, authentic, and sustainable tourism experiences. Ready to join us on this journey? Visit learntourism.org and start making a difference today.
Hi, this is Dan James from Madden Media. Very excited to be here.
Great to have you here in Business Class, where I get to talk with nerds in the tourism industry. And how did you get your start in this industry?
It's all about creative collisions. And we always talk about how important networks are and how important it is to be in person with folks. But I was actually working in the startup ecosystem, doing angel investing and teaching at the University of Arizona, and met a gentleman from the Southern Arizona Leadership Council. Hey, there's this CEO job from this agency that I had never heard of in an industry that I thought was very much like convention and visitor bureaus were more like the chambers than what they are, as I understand them, having come in. My start to the industry was cold for getting involved into it, but it's been a really exciting trip. And as I started to understand what the industry was, doing due diligence around the company and then the work that the clients were doing, what we found was that I saw that it was solving the problem that we were seeing for Tucson's entrepreneurial ecosystem. And when we did research around entrepreneurial ecosystems generally, we saw that one of the major gaps or one of the major things that makes people want to start an entrepreneurial ecosystem to grow economic development is actually being a great place to work and a great place to live. And how do you find out and how do you do that? You complete that circle. And that's actually how you get essentially new visitors and through tourism. And once I saw that tourism was lead generation for the future of communities, that was everything for me, that to connecting a whole different space that was out there that wasn't just travel and was much more about communities.
I think that's an important factor that I've found in common with most of the CEOs that I admire in the industry. And it is that sense of giving back to the community in the work that they do. And we form communities in a lot of different ways, like the people that we work with, the partners that we work with. How would you like the people in your community to describe you?
Wow. And I guess it's how do you define who my community is too, right? There is a community that is the 200 and some folks that we have at Madden. There's the community in the industry and the community that is with our kids and where my son goes and plays football and all of the fun things that are local. But at the end of the day, my hope is that across all of those communities that there's a sense of one, a commitment to service, which is a big part of my background. And then two, just that I'm helpful and helping people get to the other side of whatever challenge or opportunity that they're working with.
Talk to me about the people at Madden, 200 and something people. That's a pretty big team.
Yeah, it's fascinating too, because when we started was about 6 years ago, we were about 80 some folks that were in the business. About half of them were, or half the business was really around print and publications. It was where the business was. And as we continued to grow, we saw the opportunity that we looked at our skill sets and we're like, look, we have great graphic designers. We have great creative leadership. We have people that really care about what's happening in communities and how marketing can be helped to serve those. And then how you apply good media and to that. And I think what we've seen for the last 6 years has been just a consistent evolution of how can we help, and that how can we help model is great. Now we've started to say we have a more support for meetings and conventions, more support with public relations, experiential marketing, and so much more than just maybe the digital agency work that we were doing previously that continues to be able to be grown. But I don't think that could have actually been built and created if it wasn't for a concept that really was impactful for me in my military time, which was a concept called team of teams that General Stanley McChrystal brought up and how he approached building a network of empowered, interconnected teams that operate with speed, flexibility, and a shared purpose. And by what they did and coming out of a special operations command effort was allowing to put real strong resources or resources at the closest part of the opportunity or the closest challenge that's out there. And that's what we've been able to do. So across Madden, we have 11 different teams. Five of them are really focused on how do we put the people with the right skills and the ability to do 80% of the work next to all of our clients. And when you do that, we get the ability to have that empowered execution at the lowest level, that trust and collaboration that happens with that small team that knows each other, that team that also knows the clients. Because they're small, they're also very adaptable to whatever opportunities that come up. So that becomes a really big power and differentiator for us and the company, while also having a set of teams that are like really good specialists, right? These are the people that come in and do public relations or website development, SEO, all of those type of elements that have just a little bit more nuanced skill and don't always have to be so much to the generalists, have that ability to bring that specialization and that specialist skill to bear for each of those teams based on the needs that are out there that not be as consistent as I need a new set of creative, or I need a new campaign launched, or I need to optimize my media in the many ways that happens.
So your background in the military is one that at the top of my head, I can think of maybe only two other CEOs in the space that have mentioned that background. How do you think that serves you as a leader now? And what do you think other leaders could learn from your experience?
The military side is so really unique, and the fact that so many people think about the military as being hierarchical and top down and command oriented, but it's actually a lot the opposite. It's about how do you train and build a team to execute at all levels and to be able to progress and develop through adversity, challenges, but also opportunities as they grow and develop and have a set of team members that sit below them. That part for me is probably the biggest single thing that I see as being impactful there, is that component of people putting people first and about it from a growth mindset there. The military also definitely gave me a completely different set of how I think about marketing as well. But that's more a function of how, when we think about the military, it's how do you put, or how, the use of military assets, about how do you influence a battle or an engagement or a conflict across multiple means, generally through kinetic and non-kinetic means. We only use non-kinetic means here, of course, but it's the understanding of what audience are we trying to target and see how they're going to bring them into a destination, and that focus to be able to put multiple different solutions to recruit them into a destination definitely has boded well for understanding that.
What do you think is going to be the biggest factor of change in the next few years?
You talk about it, and of course, it must be the mobile phone or typewriters or this other thing that we're talking about called AI that shows up. And I just a little bit because, and purposefully talk about typewriters or calculators or the web or mobile devices, because every time those came out, you saw just this dramatic shift in how businesses operated and how consumers operate across each of those technology evolutions. Right now, we're at if you think about the hype cycle, at the rise of like inflated expectations of what AI is going to do in the longer stages that maybe is not there yet, but it is at the precipice of a new space that will be much like mobile, where when you think about mobile, and when I think about mobile, I think about mobile compute, which is the ability to have compute everywhere, which means connected devices on my thermostat all the way to my mobile phone, to my laptop, to being able to have connectivity in air and an airplane. Like that pervasiveness of what mobile compute wasn't there 10 years ago, right? And wasn't even something we were talking about 10 years ago. As we look at what's happening over the next, 10 or 20 years, AI is going to be everywhere in the same way that mobile compute is everywhere and that connectivity has been everywhere. Much like the cell phone, though, we're going to have a number of dropped calls. We are going to have AI challenges that exist across the space. And even if you follow through that Gartner hype cycle model, you've gone up to this peak of inflated expectations. We're going to be disappointed and disillusioned by these things really aren't there, especially after going to all of the conferences that talk about the promises of AI before we reach that peak of productivity there in that space. And as I look at it, and as we look at it internally, we've been really focused on how do we change the culture internally before we start changing the culture of what the consumer is going to do. And I think that's a really important phase because if you try to push down and say all the consumer oriented pieces and you now need to be supporting AI driven consumer model, your culture that hasn't moved there yet is going to be fighting the AI tool that is part of what your business is. And if we look at what AI is doing, it's increasingly and steadily becoming more important in what the consumers are using it for travel, but it's also not ubiquitous yet. So I think it's just for DMOs and agencies and everybody in the space really to look at what's the culture look like that they've built to enable AI. What are the policies and procedures? Are you giving access to it? Have you talked about how you build a generalized AI in terms of maybe a commercial off the shelf tool like ChatGPT that is customized for your organization, but also how can you build a purpose driven AI, kind of that sports car model that does one thing really well instead of a bunch of things. And we're seeing that with some of the prototyping we're doing with PR measurement, where we adapt the Barcelona principles to PR measurements. They are customized to each individual client and they have that ability. That's a sports car model tool that says, I can change something that used to take me 15 minutes an article down to something that takes me less than a minute. Those are time savers and where we see pain relief, how that happens to consumers and to the inside culture. I still think we're a little ways out from where we see true gain creation, where there's a net new positive insight or change that isn't just about efficiency, at least in the next months to years, or at least until people get more comfortable with how to use it in a day-to-day scenario more than anything.
What's your favorite AI tool right now?
I'm getting deep into ChatGPT. It's my favorite one that I'm using, and I'd say it's the most robust. That gives you the most ability to do customization that's out there. The custom GPTs are what really differentiated for me. It's been amazing to see how quickly Google Gemini has shifted in its performance. It was really bad when it came out, and there's definitely a management failure there and how that happened, but how that's turned and how they've really focused their effort to get back to understanding truth, to get back to understanding what people wanted to do has been really fascinating to see.
If you weren't doing this right now, what would you be doing?
If I wasn't doing Madden right now, that's a tougth question. My wife and I talked about that probably about a year ago when we made the decision to buy the company from the founders. It was like we're doing the thing that we want to do, and we can't imagine doing anything else that's out here. It sounds like lip service or something there, but we've been privileged after coming out of our selling 426 and the company that we had before Madden to be comfortable and to be able to invest in this team and continue to be in here. The 200 folks that we have and the industry that we have it's what's absolutely amazing. And being at Esto this was it 2 weeks ago, I think, last week, time's running away from me here, but seeing all of our colleagues there and seeing them in that professional setting and a social setting and that engagement was just joyful and was really excited to be part of this and be here.
You take a look around your office. What is something in the room that holds a real significance to you, and how so?
I definitely have a number of things on my wall that are from my time in the military that mean a lot to me. You'll see across that space, if I guess we're on audio, but if you ever see my background, you'll see things that mean something to me that come from individuals and relationships. That is the common thread through them. And the military piece, obviously, a big connection to that and to West Point and everything on that side. But I see Pine Bluff Distilling and think of Dominic Bravo and the team at Visit Cheyenne, my Visit Tampa Bay luggage tag that's out there and ornament that we have, to some tequila based from one of the Idaho Tourism Council members. So they're very much all about personal relationships and connections there that definitely make it exciting to see.
How do you maintain personal relationships with the members of your team being as big as it is?
I'll tell you that's hard. And the two things that get harder as we scale is definitely the ability to maintain the close relationships with everybody. So we look for ways to do that intentionally. One, we try to travel frequently and get that in-person connection into accounts, but there's a component that doesn't scale. So we'll meet this December at Muse, which is our annual conference that brings everybody together, and that'll be part of it. But it's really we're starting to build out some purposeful groups that are knowledge skill groups that really are about how do we advance the profession within each of our disciplines. So think about graphic design, content, copy, et cetera, that are out there to that are part of what we do there to bring that those collisions. And then the other part is how do we identify audiences that we have internally and that are also audiences that we're looking at from a marketing perspective to figure out how do we bring their voice better closer to the company, but also how do we bring the ability to engage that audience in markets from a marketing perspective, because we see such similarity, whether it's our LGBTQ plus crew, whether it is the work that we're doing with accessibility, sustainability, those sort of things are things that we want to look at internally that's out there. But all of that being said, foundationally, it starts at the beginning. Everybody comes in, understands our mission, understands our values, and that's done with me and my COO, Sarah, who walks them through who we are, what our expectations are for everybody in the company across what we're doing, and then talk to them about our values. And we try to tell a little bit about those values in a story that allows people to put what that actually means instead of it being just a generic frame on a wall type of concept for what we think about our values on that space.
I think that also gives people the chance to place themselves in the story and find their
That's a
space.
really great point.
Is there something I didn't ask that you wish I did?
I think the only thing that I would say that is that we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be able to do any of the work that we did if it wasn't for the team that we have, both at Madden and the folks that we have across the country. But also wouldn't be here without our clients and our partners as well. Together, we're able to make a difference for each of those communities. And that's really just the reason why I get excited to come to work every day. It's what gives you purpose. And I think it's what gives the team purpose across the space is that we are coming to work every day to help make those communities better and to be more impactful there. And that's not just about room nights. It's about hotel staff. It's about the hospitality service workers. It's about 50% of the people that are coming into restaurants. I think it's in Bentonville is travel and tourism, our tourists that are in there. So those are things that as we look across the space are really impactful to us to say, this is what we're part of. And these are the jobs that we're part of. It's not just about selling fun. It's not just about selling vacations. It's about having real meaning and real purpose that's out there. And part's the part that gets us excited and looking forward to doing more.
Fantastic. If folks want to learn more about you or your work, how would they go about doing so?
They should definitely take a look at our blog and our website at maddenmedia.com, where we are constantly trying to write about things that we're doing across the space on our blog and our information. And of course, liking and following us on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and whatnot ensures that you get the information updated as we have those releases. Lastly, don't hesitate to look us up at any of the state tourism conferences, regional conferences. Shout out to One West and the new professional and responsible tourism program that is launching this in 2 weeks from now at the Education Summit. And I think the Tourism Academy work is something else that's a great partnership that we're really happy to have you guys there to provide some of that benefit to the members there as well.
Is there anything you'd like to ask me?
What are you finding most exciting right now in the industry? And there's so much change going on and so much going on in the industry. What's most exciting for you?
There are two things that really stand out to me. One is sustainability, and more importantly, that leading into regenerative tourism. Sustainability is a net zero. Regenerative is a positive. And I grew up in a community where you leave things better than you found them. So it's interesting to see how that's going to take place over the next few years. And we're seeing it start to creep in some smaller or mid-sized destinations. It'll be nice to see that on a greater scale. The second thing that really stands out to me, value tourism. And that is not getting the high value visitor because they spend more nights, they spend more time, they spend more money. It is getting the visitor who shares the values that you hold highest in your community and seeing how destinations are doing a better job to find the right visitors that make their communities better by visiting.
I think either of those topics could be a full session to dive in. It's funny to talk about the sustainable tourism space, and we've been talking about this for a while. Of we think sustainable tourism is so important, but sustainable tourism can only happen if there's a connection back to the economic growth and the economic impact of communities, which gets
Mhm.
into the regenerative tourism component that's out there. And it's why we're big advocates for the One West tourism program to do professional and responsible tourism, because responsible tourism encompasses not just sustainable tourism and being the good stewards, but also how do you get that growth and take care of the society and the community that needs those jobs that are out there. And that's one area that I think is going to become a bigger conversation piece, probably aligns with the conversation of anytime that you're too focused on one singular thing, you lose sight of the larger reason why we're here. So I'm excited to see some of the regenerative components that you mentioned there. But on the other side, you made the comment about values driven and values aligned communities. I see some like real value there, but I also see some real risk.
Mhm.
Is it possible that our communities in that case become more like our social media channels that are on the edges and some of the, I don't want to say the worst of us, but do somehow we have fewer collisions? And I think about the Mark Twain quote of,
Yeah.
if we are only looking for people that like us, are we able to have that travel as fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow mindedness? Or do we reinforce that? Maybe that's more my commentary on social media than it is value driven in space.
And I think it's going to be a balancing act. I'm curious to see where it goes and where destination leaders bring it. Back to your comment about sustainability, it is about multiple factors. It's not just about the styrofoam cup. It's not just about the economics. It's also the culture. It's also preserving what it is that makes something unique. It is preserving the cultural assets, people who make a place what it is. And I think so much of that sustainability conversation has come from a place of more trees, less pollution. And I think as it graduates to the next level, it's a better understanding of all of that.
And those people is comes out back to storytelling, right?
Mhm.
And everybody's got a brewery, but not everybody's got Bob's Brewery. And let me tell you about Bob's Brewery and how he got here. Those stories that catch people's attention make it a reason why one destination fits that consumer over another. And it
Mhm.
becomes an exciting time to see.
Fantastic. I appreciate you sharing your time with me. Thank you for joining me in business class where I get to talk to nerds.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephen. Really appreciate the time.
Thanks for tuning in to Business Class. This episode was brought to you by Learn Tourism, the nonprofit academy where we advance the tourism industry with cutting edge training and sustainable practices. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to visit learntourism.org to learn more about our programs and how you can get involved. Until next time, stay curious, continue learning and making a difference through tourism.